Have you ever felt like editing video is eating way too much of your time? Whenever I edit, I can almost watch the hours disappear like they're like on fast forward or something. I realized that a lot of this boiled down to only one thing, and that is my organization skills, or honestly kind of the lack of my organization skills. Now, after editing a ton of videos over a couple of years, I finally stumbled upon a pretty straightforward fix that turned things around for me eventually. So today I'm diving onto the exact steps that help me cut down on my wasted time and kind of up my editing game. Now, diving headfirst into editing without a plan is like trying to build a house without a blueprint. Just think of a real life scenario. If you want to build a house, for example, it's not like the construction workers are gonna just show up and they're gonna start laying the bricks and just kind of improvise the whole thing and build your house. They've got an architect that makes a game plan that they have to follow. And the same principles apply for video editing. Now, it doesn't have to be a super sophisticated plan, obviously, and I personally like to use AI to help me with this kind of stuff. So for instance, ChatGPT is an incredible tool for brainstorming and outlining video projects. And spending some time pre-planning and storyboarding might seem like a drag, but it's actually a shortcut to a much faster edit. And knowing what you need exactly and where each piece fits saves you from like endless tweaking and like second guessing down the line. Alright, let's talk about something that took me way too long to figure out, and that is accepting imperfections. I used to be that guy kind of nitpicking every tiny detail, thinking it had to be like absolutely perfect before anyone else could see it. It hit me one day when I was like obsessing over some kind of like minor color grading issue that probably nobody else would have noticed. And that's when I realized like sometimes your project at a certain stage is good enough to be published. Just accept it. And that brings me to the next talking point, which is obsessing over the tiniest details. And I think that is a trap that every video editor falls into at some point. We've all been there, kind of tweaking a frame here and there, adjusting a color or whatever, until all of a sudden like hours have passed by and you can't even remember why you started. A video is never truly finished, and there's always something that you could change or improve. But at some point, you've got to call it a day, honestly. Perfection is an illusion, and chasing it can cost you really precious time and energy. So as video editors, we're often kind of caught in a tunnel, and other people won't necessarily notice these small details that we lose sleep over. Okay, the next piece of advice is taking breaks. It sounds very simple, right? But how many of us actually do it in a planned way? I remember pulling these like insane editing marathons, thinking it was the only way to get through my workload. And I think in retrospect it was a little counterproductive, and it actually reminded me of something back in university. I remember we had some exchange students from China, and they had the same intense routine. They would be in the library for what seemed like, 18 hours straight, but they would actually sleep through half of it right there among the books, and it was kind of their hardcore way of doing things. But when it comes to editing, I think this approach is not necessarily the golden ticket, and I think it's much better to knock out a solid couple of hours of focused editing, then hit pause, take a breather, and maybe even catch a quick nap or step outside or whatever. The key is to recharge your energy, so when you are back at your computer, you are more productive and can wrap up your project with a more clear head. Here's another thing I want to talk about that drives me mad. If you watch similar videos, then you probably heard a million people claiming that keyboard shortcuts will speed up your editing workflow. Well, I'm here to give it to you straight. Thinking keyboard shortcuts will make you an editing wizard like overnight is, in my opinion, a bit of an overstatement. You're not trying to become a pro gamer after all. So if you know a couple of shortcuts, then cool, that is useful, but I wouldn't worry too much about like learning them by heart or whatever. But here's the real shortcut for you, and that is using templates. Like, why spend hours on something when you can achieve a similar, if not better product in a fraction of the time? And speaking of taking smart shortcuts, brings me to today's sponsor, that is Motion Array. It is the place I turn for when I'm looking for top-notch templates that cut my work time quite dramatically. Whether it is text animations, transitions, music, sound effects, or anything else, Motion Array has it. They probably even have a Big Mac. Don't believe me? Well, let's go to the platform and type in hamburger. You see, here's a hamburger. They have it, I told you. Now, having access to a platform like this is making your editing workflow as efficient as possible, giving you more time to focus on the creative aspects of your projects. So if you're looking to speed up your work, Motion Array is definitely worth checking out. I use it all of the time in my personal projects, and in case you don't know how it works, it is a subscription-based platform that allows you to download as much as you can. Like literally, you can sit there 24 hours a day and download up to like 2 million assets, no issues. If you wonder about pricing, access to the library comes at a price that I think is honestly like not that expensive. It costs you less than $30 per month. And for those of you who are thinking long term, if you sign up for a full year, then it drops down to only $20 per month, but it gets even better. By clicking the link below the video, I will hook you up with an even better deal on their annual plan, slashing $50 off the price tag. I personally think having a subscription to Motion Array isn't just a resource, it's a really decent investment in making your video content stand out without breaking the bank. And last but not least, Motion Array is not just sitting back and giving you the same old like everyone else. They're always innovating. They just started teaming up with artists who bring something totally different to the table. Then they take that unique flair and transform it into editable templates that you can use in your videos. So for instance, check out their latest collaborations with an artist that is known for a super distinct style. Pretty cool, hey? So with Motion Array, you're basically a step ahead. Now next up, I have probably the most important advice in this video. Okay, let's tackle the beast, the absolute elephant in the room, disorganized files. Like, I used to spend hours searching for that one clip. I swore that I named like final_final, this is the one _final.mov. And I bet you've probably been in a similar spot. Now, the solution to avoid this kind of frustration is a solid folder structure, and I'll explain exactly on how it looks here on my computer. So first of all, any project should have some sort of time code. So if you sort it alphabetically, then you know which month it was shot in. So the way I like to do it is I start with the year, then the month, then the day, and then I loosely describe what a project is. So in our example, 2024 0409, and then I call it, I don't know, my trip to Japan. Okay, step number 2, you want to make sure that your footage, audio, project files, and exports have each their own place where you can find them easily. Think of another real-life analogy. Like, if you've been to a hospital before, you realize that the doctor also has organized their tools properly. They don't just like scatter their scissors and like knives and other surgical instruments all over the floor, and then something gets left behind inside the patient's stomach or something like that. The same principle applies for video editing. So inside each project folder, I tend to make subfolders that once again I attach a number to. So for example, 01 footage. Here I obviously keep my footage, and I tend to sort it loosely for shooting days and then for the particular device. So for example, okay, let's say I'm on a Japan trip and I'm looking for a particular drone shot. Then I know, okay, this was day number 2 in Kyoto, and it was taken there on a Mavic 2 Pro in that folder. Boom. That saves me so much time. Then I like to create similar folders, for instance, for the Premiere Pro project file. If I had shot images, then I follow the same procedure for the image folder. then obviously Lightroom library in a separate folder, and I even tend to make a separate folder for time lapses because they don't really fall into either category, but that is optional. And then you want to have a folder where you dump your assets like music, sound effects, and so on. And lastly, I like to make a folder called export so I can easily locate the finished videos I make and also like the photos that I edited in Lightroom and so on. Okay, next I got another ridiculously simple trick that is going to save you a ton of hassle, and that is labeling your hard drive. So I've got this growing collection of drives and it's becoming like a small army, like it's like 24 of them. And recently I got myself one of these label printers of Amazon, and that really makes me feel like a baby boomer. Like, look at this thing. This is like something my grandpa would absolutely love. But this one is actually a real lifesaver because after I started labeling my drives properly, there's no more plugging and unplugging half a dozen drives just to find the files that I need. Now, each label mirrors exactly how the drive is named on my computer, because let's be honest, giving them like cool names like Spider-Man or Batman or whatever, it sounds like fun, but it is not so helpful and is not going to make your workflow any faster. And by the time you accidentally like wipe a year's worth of footage because Batman was actually last year's project archive and not your spare effects library, it's not going to be so cool anymore. And I like to keep it super simple and straightforward. Each drive is labeled with its capacity, a sequential number for when I have multiples of the same size, and then the year for the specific project. So for instance, 5 terabyte 2021. This means this is my first 5 terabyte drive and it has the data that I shot in the year 2021. And last but not least, let's talk about one of the most life-threatening things in video editing, and that is the lack of backups. I know it doesn't sound super exciting, but hear me out. Like, not backing up your files is like driving on a motorbike without a helmet at like 200 miles per hour. It's a suicide mission. Like, either you'll have an accident, or if the police catches you, you're gonna lose your license for sure. So why would you do the same reckless thing in your video editing? Like, hard drives fail and files get lost and corrupted all of the time. And imagine having to tell your client, hey, I'm sorry, your project just vanished into thin air because I didn't back it up. You're gonna look like a complete idiot, and that is why every file should at least exist more than once. So for all of the drives and data that I own, I have a mirror that has exactly the same data. And you can automate the process of backing those up like very easily. And for a couple of years now, I like to use a tool which is called Carbon Copy Cloner, who are not sponsors or affiliated or anything, but they just have an amazing product solution and it's not that expensive. So all you gotta do is just plug in both hard drives and the tool does everything for you. It's very straightforward and it ensures that I have physical real-time backups of everything that I'm working on. Seriously, like, backing up is not negotiable. Like, start taking it seriously. So remember, staying organized in your editing is really key and ensures that your projects turn out just the way as you want them. So you gotta set yourself up for success right from the start. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to check out this playlist right here. And with that said, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.